Now, this is very alarming to know the rate of suicides that we are having currently in Ghana, and also alarming to know that men are committing suicides more than women here in Ghana. Now, last week, this conversation started on Prime Insights. We had a psychologist and a community psychiatry nurse specialist in the house as well, who gave us an overview of the causes of suicide, the reasons some people, decide to commit suicide, and also what really, but today actually we are trying to get into what really goes on in the minds of people who make an attempt to commit suicide. And so in the guest with me is Francis Obeng, and he is a community psychiatry nurse. Good morning, Francis.
Good morning.
You were here last week,
yes,
with us in studio.
That's true.
Right,
so I'm
right.
Francis Yeboah.
Yeboah, sorry. Yeah, Francis Yeboah. Right, okay. So we have two of our guests also joining us via Zoom. Ohiming Teria, who is a journalist with the Multimedia Group. Good morning, Ohiming. Ohiming, can you please unmute for me? Ohiming, kindly unmute so we can hear you. Okay, and my third guest for this conversation is Professor Dr. Paul Osei Sampini, who is a pathologist. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing too?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for joining us. And so, Francis, so you being a part of the conversation, at the beginning of the conversation on suicide.
Yeah.
Today's topic actually is my suicidal inclinations. And so I believe that from what was built from last week, you have something to share with us. So kindly do so and then we continue.
Yes, so I must say last week conversation was very much insightful and very impactful.
Yeah.
When we finished the conversation, it's actually created an outlet for a lot of men, especially, to ventilate their feelings. And a lot of them came to us and they were saying they didn't know that probably they can have places like that people will be giving them the listening ears, just to talk about whatever they are going through. And also, like I said, it gave them the opportunity to ventilate their emotions. And also, I remember when we were having the program, we put we underpinned the suicide hotlines. A lot of people said they didn't know that we even have a suicide hotline that they can call when they are desperate, when they are in need, and other things. They didn't know. So actually on set, we put the number of Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Department of Psychiatry, to be specific, number online, and people call. And when they called, we were able to give them the national hotline. And I think it was really good for a lot of people. There are others that say that we actually came into their rescue, because during that week, a whole lot of things were going through their mind. It has actually opened door where, in fact, people are getting to understand some of these emotional toucher issues. People have come to, erase some sort of misconceptions that they have, some sort of traditional beliefs, some sort of things that actually was, they were trivializing on it, or it was actually, overcoming them. I mean, they were not using the right coping mechanisms. So in a nutshell, what I want to say is that it has really brought relief to people that were going through such circumstances.
And speaking of bringing relief, when the conversation started last week on Prime Insights on the show, Joy FM took the conversation yesterday as well, and on Lexus Bill's show, and the phone lines were opened, and one gentleman actually said that the show saved him from committing suicide. And so we are excited that we are part of this, and then we are driving this. But then, per your submission, and earlier the revelation that came out that men are committing more suicide than as compared to than women. So when men are overwhelmed and stressed, what should they do? Where do they go to?
You are right. You see, that is true. A lot of men are committing suicide as compared to women. But you know, when men are overstressed, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that in the field of psychiatry or people that dealt into psychiatry, we are not just giving medications. We actually teach men to be how to be, emotionally intelligent. When you are emotionally intelligent, it helps you.
Right.
You can't forgo stresses of life. Life is full of uncertainties. You might have financial crisis, marital issues, divorce, whatever. Life is full of uncertainties. That is the reality of life. But we teach people how to be emotionally intelligent so that as a man, you'll be able to know your limitations in life. You'll be able to know your capabilities in life. So these are things that we let people know, and we can do that through education.
Okay.
So you don't need even to get into the problem first before you get accustomed to all these things.
Right.
You need to fasten your belt with some of these mental health coping strategies so that when you are confronted with issues of life, you know where to outlet your emotions. When you go to their their consulting room, they give rooms to clients who are having a lot of issues to cry. Why? Because they know that when the issues accumulate, it affects the chemicals in the brain,
Okay.
and you will start behaving weird. At that time, you have no control over yourself. So all these things are platforms that helps men. But unfortunately, a lot of men didn't know, or perhaps they were, just, trying to control in their own special way through their traditional beliefs and other things.
Okay, all right. Dr. Paul.
Yes.
Being a pathologist, tell us about your experience working on suicide victims.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda. It's good to have such conversation or such discussions on a broad-based manner like we are doing. As a pathologist, my work basically is to perform autopsies on victims who have either committed suicide. And so we try to, for instance, see the common denominator that seeks to bind all these people who commit suicide. That is to say that those who commit suicide is a deliberate attempt by one to end his or her life, so that like the young man sitting there saying that most of the people are not intelligent as far as emotions are concerned, or they should have emotional intelligence. It's right. He is very right in that manner. But you look at it and then have to have a second look at what are some of the causes. Why would they do that? Why would the men or why would people not have emotional intelligence and go ahead to do whatever they decide doing, a deliberate attempt at killing themselves? And in my research work, and documents and then other autopsy findings as far as my post-mortem is concerned, the documentation seeks to come to one conclusion, and then especially among the adolescents, the older adolescents, where for some reason they decide to take their life, most often, especially among the men, most often is what we call love affairs.
Okay.
And then, yes, and few of them would do same as a result of maybe pressures from friends, money, financial constraints, and so on and so forth. Those are some of the things that I have come to conclude that these are some of the things that make men especially commit suicide. More than the female.
Okay.
And if you allow me to give some of the reasons.
Yes, that was actually what I was going to get to. So kindly do that.
Okay, I believe that all of us know that with this advent of these telenovelas, where people are shown the method of committing suicide, both hanging and then maybe self-inflicting gunshot wounds. Even sometimes some of them will use sharp-edged instrument to cut some veins. In fact, it's apart some veins on their body or some arteries, and then they bleed to death, taking excessive dosage of medication and all those things. And you can also, attest to the fact that with this advent of movies, these African movies, people also have seen how easy to commit suicide, especially these are young, the adolescents who are usually glued to some of these things, and they don't understand that some of these things that they do, and they trying to show us probably something, but of course the education is not well given to us. And then you look at what do you call it, Westernization. Westernization does not only sort of put stress on the young adults, but rather it shows them how to commit suicide. And these days, internet, mobile phones availability is also causing it, because sometimes you'll be probably be sitting in the comfort of your home, and somebody sends you something that seems to portray how to commit suicide. In fact, the Westerners are fond of committing suicide with the least provocation. So those are some of the reasons. In fact, some of them too are also is as a result of stigmatization. Women for some reason could not deliver, could not give birth, were being stigmatized. Diseases that were not well diagnosed. I know of some cases that I did autopsy. When later on I read through their history was that somebody somewhere diagnosed them of HIV. Meanwhile, the thing was not HIV, it was they had just written something different and didn't understand. So they thought that, how can I live with HIV? The stigma would attach to it, so he committed suicide. And so these are some of them. A lot of time, I did a autopsy on an elder woman about 70 years who was accused of witchcraft. And then the other, in fact, other family members were teasing her and all those things. Older woman, very old woman, but she committed suicide. So these are some of the things that I believe is accounting for some of these tendencies of one trying to, take his or her life in a manner that is not pleasant. Hanging, and then shooting oneself, cutting of vital vessels, taking of some overdose drugs, and so on and so forth, which of course, but of course, mind you, let us also know that there are some of these, so-called suicide that are maybe homicide. There are some people who can kill and then disguise it in a manner that if you are not careful, if you are not a pathologist, or if you are not somebody who is an expert in it, you may think that whoever is hanging on the ceiling, whoever is hanging on the tree, or any other place that you may find the person is one who has committed suicide. Some of them are just disguised. So we should also take note of that.
Okay, right. All right. Thank you very much, Doc. And so we have Ohemen Teria joining us via Zoom. Ohemen, can you hear me? Hello, Ohemen. Ohemen, kindly unmute for me. So. Hello, Ohemen. If you can unmute. So Ohemen is a red button with a microphone sign on there. So just hit on that so you are unmuted because we can't hear you. Hello? Okay, all right. We'll definitely do our very best to get back to Ohemen Teria because he has something very interesting to share with you. So we are going to do our best to get to him. Now, Francis.
Yes.
So listening to what Doc explained, being a pathologist and what he's found so far when it comes to opening up the bodies of people who have committed suicide. How does that make you feel being a psychiatrist a psychiatric nurse,
Yeah.
dealing with these people, like in the daily lives of people having challenges mentally and then all that. How does that make you feel?
Yes, it sounds the second time I'm hearing this from a specialist.
Okay.
And that is true. They actually see the final body.
Right.
And they actually go into details and examine what actually kills the person. He made certain revelations that sometimes people kill and they actually try to make it feel around that the person committed suicide. But because they are an expert, they are able to go into details and know exactly what actually killed the person. I think he has really emphasized on a lot of things, and that is perfectly true, and I agree with him. One thing that people have to know is that the people that commit suicide, the loved one, those that we really love that they commit suicide. If you have anybody that is around you that you really love that the person commits suicide, one thing that you have to know is that you also become vulnerable. So the people, almost 60% of people that commit suicide, their loved ones also sometimes ends up committing suicide.
Okay.
Doctor made a revelation, and that revelation is that he said the new movies, the telenovelas and other things that is displayed, they actually depict or shows the methods
ways.
of committing suicide. So when one wants to commit suicide, what actually comes into the person's mind is, how do I exit? So do I want to exit by this method or that method? So you see that they research, go into it, if it's medication or whatever that he wants to exit. So the point I want to arrive at is that observational learning is a key. And the reason why people that commit suicide, their loved ones become vulnerable or susceptible, is that they also observe. They observe what the person did to exit. So it makes them that it becomes the coping strategy for them. And that is what is happening now. And that is why it calls for massive support. Each and everyone needs to come together when we are trying to eradicate this kind of suicidal tendencies and ideas.
You know, before you continue, before the show started, the documentary that was playing, the survivors, the first one mentioned that the concoction that he put together, he gave it to dogs to test to see if it will work properly before, and then 3 of the dogs died, and that was when you knew that it's a potent concoction for him to take.
Yeah.
And then the woman also said that she drank Parazone, which is very alarming. So it's like, it's not even only telenovelas that are influencing this. We know that, okay, when we go into our kitchen, our toilet, you know, where we keep our stuff and all that, we can put this and this together to make something, and then we are good to go.
Yeah, that's it. They experiment. They know. Sometimes all the senses are working. They hear what people are saying.
They hear what people are saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They hear and they see. These days, screens are all over. Media is all over. Some go to the net and go and find out what is actually going on. And when they search, they will get people that have also put in measures or things there to end your life.
Right. Okay. Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
Yes, so now let's come to when you open up the bodies of suicide victims. What exactly, when you open it up, what exactly does it tell you? We want to understand, after opening them up, maybe, you know, there are certain chemicals here and there that shows or gives you signs that this and this is exactly what this person did to commit suicide. What does it tell you?
Oh, yes. Well, what it says is simple, that I always keep telling my police officers that I do autopsy with, that I don't need a police officer to tell me the circumstance that led to one's committing suicide or the other. I always say that the dead person will always talk to me. I jokingly say that, don't worry, the dead person, the one who has committed suicide, will tell me exactly how he did it. And truly speaking, it comes out that they really tell me what they went through before dying, because sometimes you get to know that the person has taken some toxic or erosive concoction. I'm talking, if you say erosive concoction, I'm saying things, the drug is so toxic, so poisonous that it starts working right from the tank and can go deep down into the intestines. And some of them go into almost all the body parts that one can think of. And then you realize that this person really wanted to kill himself or herself. And there are some too, I did a case to, I will keep on giving you examples of scenarios. A young boy of about, let's say a boy of about 10 years who was staying with a stepmother. And I think the guy was going through a lot. So one day, he just picked up some rope and committed suicide. So it was a sad scene though. Outside of Kumasi, I went to a Western region there route and did it. And when I was going to do that, in fact, everybody was saying that the boy is this, the boy is that. I said, look, hold on, let me do my own. Let me also talk to the boy who is dead. He may tell me exactly what he went through, what went through his mind. And true to my word, I opened this boy's body, and almost all the organs show that this boy has gone through a great deal of problems.
Wow.
Yeah, yes, because the spleen was so much enlarged, the liver was so much enlarged,
Okay.
the body was so, in fact, the body was so much hectic. In fact, medicine, so that what I'm saying is that the body was so much in a deplorable situation. And then I asked the family members who are around, how was this boy managed? How was he treated? How was he seen? How was he taken care of? And then that was true that they told me that the mother was a stepmother who was actually treating the boy. I said, yes, the boy has told me everything in the body that I'm seeing. He has said how he went through life. And the reason why he has committed suicide is here. Police officers, look at them. In fact, I demonstrated it to them and everybody. In fact, the family members, most of them bowed down their head in shame. You see, some of these things, like I said, a little boy of this nature, how would he know that there's something we call suicide to go and hang himself? Because he's been looking at them on television. He's been listening, to them. Do you understand? Sometimes you watch some of these movies. I'm not saying that movies are not good. They are good. Sometimes some of them have some very good educational materials for us to learn from. But however, how they do it and do it openly, that is where the problem is. For instance, this committing suicide, for instance, a small boy picked a gun around Offenso, and he thought that it was just a toy. In fact, he thought that the way people are shooting on TV and the next morning the movie again, he also tried it on his own brother in Offenso and killed him. Do you understand? But of course, this one is not suicide. We call it homicide anyway. But you look at it and you say that, is it doing us any good? I believe that is not. So the findings, like you rightly said, the findings actually tells me exactly what the person has gone through. For instance, you take somebody who, for some reason, has been rejected in the family, stigmatization. You go through the system by doing what we call systemic examination, ranging from the brain right down to the intestines. Then you realize that this person was really rejected, was really stigmatized, in fact, everything. Because you look at even the size of the heart, you look at the size of the liver, you look at the brain size, you look at the kidney size and all those things. And you really can tell that, this person has gone through a lot prior to his death or her death. So naturally, if you ask me about the findings, and the findings, of course, sometimes if it is hanging by usage of rope or maybe belts or something of that nature, anything that can give the person a support, or that can cause the breathing to stop or to cease, then you realize that most of them will have a sudden constriction of certain parts of the body that seeks to admit air into the body. So basically, these are some of the things that, and then sometimes, depending on the height or whatever the person might have committed that suicide by hanging, then you realize that this person will have sometimes a fracture of the neck, some part of the neck will be fractured. And then if it is gun, you realize certain parts of the body, depending on the organ the instruments used. I'm talking about the gun, the type of gun. Then you realize it's so much maybe damage to a lot of organs and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So that is how it is. But let me also add one thing, Brenda, if you have time. Sometimes people feel that suicide by hanging is just only when you have the person hanging on a tree or on the ceiling or something. No, you can hang using any form of support. It can be even a table in your house or a chair in your house. If it is strong enough to support the action that you want to do. So sometimes you go to maybe suicidal scenes and you see the person hanging by a small window, or you see the person kneeling down or lying, and you think that somebody. So that's what I said, that most of these things, when you, as pathologists, I'm a forensic specialist anyway. So if you go to the scene and you don't look around well, you may think that all of them probably might have been killed by suicide. No, sometimes, like I said, I still emphasize on the fact that some homicides can also be implicated in some of these cases. So please, autopsy findings, including documentations, the psychiatric way of doing things, they are all helpful in trying to mitigate against some of these things. But the main reasons for committing suicide, I think it should be looked into very well, and then we find solution to it.
Right. Okay. Okay, Doctor. Now, Ohiming is back with us. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yes,
Great.
I can hear you.
Great. Great to have you, Ohiming. Ohiming Terry is a journalist with Multimedia Group. Now, Ohiming, we are used to, or a lot of people are used to adults committing committing suicide. So there's something very interesting that you have researched on, that you have come up with. So tell us about it.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. And then let me also commend Professor Dr. Sampedi for the insight he's given. He's always been on top of his job. Yes, in Ghana, the belief is that suicide is always the preserve of adults. So when we are talking about suicide, we always pay attention to adults being the ones, or being at the receiving end. But I have taken my time. I've delved into the issue in the last 1 year. I've been undertaking some investigations into the involvement of minors or children in suicide, and the research, the findings, the issues that I came across the country whilst I investigated the issue is very, very, very intriguing and mind-boggling. All of these have been put into Joy News Spotlight documentary, and very soon details of this project will soon come out. So I would say that it is not the preserve of only adults to take their lives or attempt to take their lives. Now, children who are aged between 7 and 16, I must say, are also, involved in suicide. And what, I came across, touring at least 6 regions and also 7 and 4 other regions. I must say I've done 10 regions so far. The indication is that many children are now involved in suicide. So if we are discussing adult suicide, we also need to pay attention to child suicide as well, because nowadays many children are doing suicide at the blind side of policy makers. We seem not to paying attention, seems to have forgotten them. So that is the situation.
Right. So per the research that you've collated so far, what exactly accounts for children engaging in this act?
It is sad to note that the issues that force some to take their own lives are the similar issues that also force children to also take their lives. Initially, I thought that suicide, perhaps among children, will be very minimal, but I realized peer pressure and then broken homes, which is not common among the adult, suicide cases, is also presenting in child suicide. We also have media influence. When I talk of media influence, it has to do with even movies, because I came across a 9-year-old boy in the Eastern region who took his own life because he watched a movie, saw an actor take his life, and the other had another opportunity to enact or appear in another movie. So this child decided to use the father's gun so he can live again, but unfortunately there was no opportunity for such a child to live again. There's also stigma, as mentioned by my previous speakers. So if you look at peer pressure, for instance, I had spoke to some of the survivors, a survivor who told me he stole the father's cocoa bean, and at a point when the father threatened to arrest him, then he spoke to his friends who advised him to resort to herbicide. So he took herbicide with the aim that perhaps he can put some fear into the father, and the father could also, stop from harassing him with the police. At the end, he spent several weeks, at the hospital on life support equipment, and as we speak, he's been frequenting the hospital. So you can imagine what could lead a child to take his own life. There's also a bit of broken homes. I came across, stories where minors have died, out of suicide because their father or their parents, the relationship between their parents have broken, and then they live alone, or sometimes they live with adopted parents. And when they live in such homes, they think that they are not being taken care of. They feel so dejected, and this forces them to also take their lives. And then I've talked about the media influence as well. And then there's also the bit about movies that we watch on TV. It has great impact on the children. I've spoken to a couple of the children, some who even attempted, and they told me, oh, I wanted to do this because I saw this actor doing this, and I felt so sorry for the actor because I wanted to also follow a similar trend situation. So you can imagine. The stigma bit of it is very high. I spoke to two of the survivors. The story they shared with me is very intriguing. One of them is a cerebral palsy patient. He braved the storm from childhood, and now he's at the university level, grade level 200. In the area where he lives with the father, the people around him always, objectify him. They describe him, or they use him to, compare him to a gentleman who lives nearby. This gentleman cannot move, he can't do anything by himself. So people compare him to that gentleman, and he thinks that, no, I'm not like Kwakwinti, as you refer me to, because I'm better than Kwakwinti. I can walk, I can, bath myself, I can do things on my own, even to the point that I'm at a university and then studying now. So based on these comments from people around him, the gentleman have tried to take his life on several occasions, even on campus. You go to places and then decide to jump from heights and all that. And so these are some of the things that influence children or minors to take their own lives.
Okay, Oheming. All right. Now, Dr. Paul.
But let me also add that unfortunately, many of these children who attempt suicide do not survive. Yes.
Right. Okay. Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
So are there any recent findings that you would love to share with us?
Can you come again, please?
Are there any recent findings that you would love to share with us?
Oh, yeah. Father, I just did another work on suicide.
Okay.
Within the northern sector of Ghana. I'm talking about when you take all the way from Kumasi up there. The trend, there's a new trend that is also coming as far as suicide attempts or suicidal deaths are concerned. Some of them are resorting to herbicides, which is weedicides, and sometimes killing by use of these deadly weapons like knives and so on and so forth. So basically, it's something that we need to validate. Women said and my other colleagues also said that we should take it serious and make a policy. That most of the time, I understand that in Ghana there is a law that states that if you commit suicide and you don't die, probably you are prosecuted, maybe you'll be taken to court and probably be jailed. If you have a second look at it, and then
so apparently that law has changed.
Well, it's good. If it changes, it's very good.
Yes, it's
so that those
decriminalized
people,
now.
Yeah, that's fine. Those people need our support.
Yes.
If somebody commits he attempts, in fact, there is somebody that I personally interacted with who was also he was thinking of committing suicide. We call it ideation of a suicidal attempt. And I'm trying to get a lot of some of these things and see if I can make a paper out of it, so that the policymakers will look at it holistically, and then whatever decision they would like to take to help these unfortunate victims to survive would be a very good thing for us.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And so that was Professor Dr. Paul Osei Sampani, Professor of Forensic Pathology. Have a wonderful morning, Doc. Thanks so much.
Have a wonderful morning too.
Right. Okay. Francis.
Yes, dear.
Where can people go to for help?
Yes, I must say Prof. and Ohimen has made a lot of good points out there. Now, when you are seeking for help, and I must say people that normally goes through suicide, and when it becomes something that really affects the mind, they normally lack insights, and people around have to prompt them so that at least, because if you tell them to go, especially if the person is still, so much into beliefs that will not allow him to see a professional, the person will not come. So people around also should look for where to seek the help. And one is to walk in. You can walk in, for example, you can just come in and you get a psychologist to actually see to you.
Right.
If not, you can also make a call. Kolebu has a multidisciplinary team where we have community specialists, of which I'm one. We have community psychiatrists, community psychiatric nurses, occupational therapists, psychologists, which we can come home, at least if the person can come, at least to assess the situation and de-escalate. When hospitalization will be very needed, we will recommend and refer from the community to the hospital.
Okay.
So I think these things can be done. And also, you can make a call.
Right.
You can give a call. The Mental Health Authority, they have a hotline that you can call when you have any suicidal ideation, when you want to talk to somebody concerning the problem that you are going through, and they'll give you the guidance from there. You can call Kolebu. I think we have to break the stigma, as Doctor said, where it will not be seen as going for maybe clinical settings to look at your emotions or whatever you're battling becomes an issue. You can just go in like the way we go to the general settings or general healthcare for anything that you want to take on. Do you understand?
I really do understand. Ohimen, are you there? Ohimen?
Sure, I'm here.
Right. Okay. So have you had the opportunity? Have you had the opportunity to interact with parents or guardians of the victims?
Yes, throughout my project, I interacted with over 26 parents and relatives of suicide victims, and the response from them was a bit, difficult to comprehend, because many a time these guardians or parents do not pay attention to some of these victims, and you can see that perhaps they, one way or the other, contributed to the issue of suicide from their relatives. So sometimes they are also complicit. For instance, a parent in Penkwasi in Sunyani area bought rat poison and kept it very close to the 7-year-old son. And the woman left home, and the 7-year-old son, thought that the mother loved the little sister more than him. So he decided to take the rat. And it was at the Kofanoche Teaching Hospital that he opened up to the caregivers. I told them that I took the decision. I took the rat poison because I think that my mother doesn't love me. And you realize that had it not been the intervention of the mother, the child would have survived or would be living, because she bought a rat poison, kept it very close to the keys, and give access to them as well. In some instances, I realized that the parents do not pay attention to the mood swings or whatever of their wars. You live in a house with a child, and all of a sudden you realize the child's mood has changed. First, he was eating, let's say, one bowl of banku. Now you give him a bowl of banku. He takes just 2 or 3 bites, and then he's not eating. You want to talk to this child. The child is in this room, lock his room or whatsoever. Then you realize that something should be amiss, but the parents will not even follow up. Sometimes they will say, oh, if it's in the room, just allow him. And many a time you go in, you realize that the child has taken his life in the very room that he was left alone. And beyond this, there's also instances where the children provoked by their works or their guardians or their parents. Whatever actions that the parents take go a long way to affect the children. The parents think that children have no emotions, but they do. They are always affected by things around them. So parents, I would say that parents should take advantage of the very presence of their kids and also understand their situation and know very well that whatever they do will definitely have impact on those children.
Right, okay. Ohime, briefly before you go, is help or support readily available for these parents or guardians and the victims as well in the community?
In the community, suicide attempts are taboos. Once you decide to take your own life, you are branded as a traitor, or you are a taboo in the community. So that is part of the whole process. And that is what is making more people try to complete whatever suicide attempts that they embark upon. So the issue is that once you attempt to take your own lives, then you are not part of us. So yes, in most of the communities, there are no support systems. You can even, there are instances where children or the minors have confided in their, classmates, but there were no support for them. When duty, for instance, recently when teachers went on strike because they were protesting against the appointment of the Director General of Ghana Education Service, on this same day, the teachers went on strike. A child of 13 years, a girl, took her life because just after the few teachers in the school have closed down the school and she was going home with the peers, she told them, today I'm going to do something that will become of the town. Everybody will be talking about me. Just in 5 minutes, not go further. Hello?
Yes. Can you briefly repeat what you were saying?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello?
We can hear you clearly, Ohiming.
Yes.
Can you repeat what you were saying? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I'm on. Right. So if this child... Oh, okay. What I meant was that this child told the classmates that he was going to, do something that will become talk of the town. Everybody in the community will be talking about her. People would come visit her house because of what she will be doing. And then because he did not receive any support from her classmates, peers or adults in the community, in the next 5 minutes, the child had already taken her life. And everybody in the nearby communities, trooped to the community to catch a glimpse of that poor girl, 12-year-old girl who had taken her life. So what it means is that many of these communities, they have no support for people with suicidal thoughts. But there are also health facilities where people can seek help. But the thought that, or the mindset, the belief that suicidal thoughts are not to be treated at the hospitals is also driving many people away from hospitals. Rather, they think that many a time people have this belief that, oh, suicidal thoughts are spiritual. And then they seek support from churches and sometimes from herbalists and all that. I've visited some of these churches and then spoke to religious leaders who think that they have power, the ability to also heal people with suicidal thoughts. Many a times, all these are non-existent. The promises are non-available, but people go to them for support.
Okay, Ohiming, thank you very much for giving us the updates on this. So Ohiming Teria is an assistant editor at Joy News. Ohiming, have a wonderful morning. Francis.
Yeah.
Earlier you were mentioning that people need to seek help, they need to call this and that, but you didn't put out the exact phone lines or hotlines that people can call. So can you do so for us before we go?
All right, so I'll put the Mental Health Authority, National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and that is 0800-678678. All right.
Can you repeat that for us?
All right, so 0800-678678. And I think when you call, someone will be readily available to respond to it. Yeah.
Okay, so you would have to do this quite a number of times for us. Yeah, the phone number. Yes, please. Again? Yes, please. Please do it. It's very important because there are a whole lot of people that I know that are having suicidal thoughts here and there. So we need to be clear on the numbers they can call to seek help.
All right.
So can you slow down a little bit for us with it?
Oh, I talk fast there. That is a toll-free line.
Okay.
So the National Suicide Prevention Helpline, that is 0800 67 8678.
Okay.
0800 67 8678.
Okay.
I hope you get it.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Viewers, I hope you've got it, and I hope that this conversation has really helped someone out there who do our very best to, keep on hitting on this topic so that we help each other. Francis, briefly, before your final remarks, where we go.
All right. Thank you very much. One thing that I want to let people know is that normally we say that time heals, especially when you're going through emotional issues, which is very traumatic. So we hear people in our community or people around us say time heals, it's just a matter of time, you forget about it, just relax. But when it comes to emotions, time really makes it worse. So you don't sit down when you are battling with emotions. You need to take a proactive step. Get people that can help you so that they can help you to ventilate your emotions. Don't keep it in you that you are waiting for one day you wake up and you forget everything. No, one day you wake up and it has really affected all levels of your life. So we must always be eager to seek for help at the earliest stage of our life, and it will take us a long way. We help people that 25 years, 40 years, they are still having issues with what has been passed over years. So we just need to take proactive steps, and it will help.
All right, Francis, thank you very much. And that was Francis Yeboah, community psychiatry nurse specialist, Department of Psychiatry at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Francis, thank you once again. Have a lovely morning.
Thank you.
So viewers, this is where we end this conversation. And for those of you that would need help, the number was put on the screen. We'll put it on there again so you can call the numbers. And that's it for this conversation.